All right, now I'm going to get into how to use the formulas that are outlined in this guide. So I'm going to walk you through the basic structure of one of the formulas, and then we're going to go through somewhat quickly through the other formulas. And most importantly, the best part about this, I'm going to show you how you actually combine these formulas effectively so you're getting the benefits of all of them or several of them in a single book. But first of all, let me point out there's more than 5 formulas. Okay, I'm giving you 5 things that are easy to understand, relatively easy to use, very difficult to screw up once you get the concept and you have a little bit of practice under your belt. But there's virtually endless number of different formulas and ways to apply the principles of persuasion and the core foundational formulas of something that's believable and something that's desirable. Okay. Also, you want to use your own words with a lot of this stuff. There's, like I say, there's no copy and pasting success, because otherwise everyone would copy and paste the same thing and release the same books, and it would just dilute the effectiveness. So I've given you so much of the work done already. However, there's still a little bit of action to take on your part when it comes to being creative and putting your own spin on it. So I kind of say it's like a coloring book. Okay, I've given you all the outlines to draw within, but you add your own color to it. You add your own voice to it, okay? Your own unique voice and perspective and niche and whatever it is, your insights, whatever you're offering in your book, that's what gives it its different color. So you can hand different people the same coloring book and the pictures might look similar, but they're still going to be different. As you really master these concepts more and more, then what happens is you don't even need the lines. You can mix and match and you can come up with your own things that just sort of naturally follow the gist of what's being laid out here, but it's not stuck too much into a box. Okay? So first of all, we have Formula 1. The way it's set up, I give you the formula. In this case, it's the contrarian book and some other name. So contrarian means it's contrary to popular opinion. It's counterintuitive is another way of looking at these books, or why a popular idea doesn't work. The flip side of that is why a idea that shouldn't work does work. Okay, and that paradoxical sort of thing that when it hits people, they go, that's intriguing, and that's not what I'm used to. So it grabs their attention and makes them interested. So what is it? I give you, I explain what it is, and I give you examples. So in this case, the low carb myth. That's contrarian only because low carb diets had become popular. If low carb diets weren't popular, or if they weren't widely bought into by a good portion of the population, you couldn't really have this book with that title and have it be effective. But because so many people follow a low carb diet, calling it a myth grabs those people's attention. The Gifts of Imperfection, while not as controversial, it's contrarian because we don't think of imperfection as a gift. Maybe it's something to be tolerated, maybe it's something that we learn to live with, but to say it's a gift, imperfection is a gift, that just messes with your head a little bit. The Obstacle is the Way is another subtle type of contrarian book. The obstacle is a good thing. And you can see more examples of actual book titles. Now keep in mind, I'm going to keep coming back to this point. A contrarian book, when I lay it out, I'm giving you a formula for how you create a book centered around a contrarian idea. For instance, the problem with paleo. The whole concept of the book is that paleo isn't all it's cracked up to be. However, as you'll see later, you can take a contrarian idea and use it anywhere. You can use it as a bullet point. You can use it as a chapter title. And you'll see how this plays out in a few moments. So these are examples of books that the whole positioning of them is around being contrary to a popular idea. Book marketing is dead. Okay. What makes this type of book irresistible? I explain the appeal of each type of book in the unique selling proposition. I give you the advantages. In this case, it's intriguing because people aren't used to hearing that. And it can also appeal to desires in the target audience to set them free from a limiting belief or behavior. What do I mean by that? Well, the Great Calorie Myth, for instance, or I'm sorry, the calorie myth would say you don't have to count calories to lose weight. And if a person's frustrated with having to count calories because they believe that's what they need to do, and someone comes along and says, hey, that's just a myth. You don't need to do that. There's a better way. It's very freeing for that person. Okay. Challenges to conquer. Everything has challenges to conquer. It's great. The better you're able to conquer these challenges, the more competitive advantage you have. the people that shy away from challenges or try to take the easy way out, they're the ones that are struggling. I've done so much of the work for you that it makes it easier to conquer these challenges, but this is still what you get paid for, okay? Or even if you're outsourcing it to someone else, you find the right person that can overcome these challenges, and just realize that a challenge, and just like the obstacle is the way, the obstacle that you face with each one of these books is actually your opportunity to stand out among the competition. So for instance, a contrarian book is inherently less believable. What I mean by that is when you're going against popular opinion, it's going to initiate skepticism among people. Unless they're already kind of in agreement with you, if you're challenging a person's belief, that's fine. It's not a bad thing. You don't want to avoid that. You just need to back it up and prove it with testimonials, with research, with some sort of evidence to, support your cause. So if you go and you have a contrarian book and someone else has a contrarian book on the same topic, two people that talk about goals suck and they're bad and you shouldn't set goals, but you can provide a lot of evidence to support your case and someone else can't, then that gives your book the advantage. Okay, so can you see how that works? Overcoming these challenges is actually a good thing, and recognizing them is just really the big key. So that's why I'm pointing them out. It can be potentially controversial. Not a big deal. There's a lot of controversial books that are highly successful. There's a lot of books that have a handful of bad reviews, but they still sell really well. In fact, if you're really pushing the envelope and to compete in the most competitive markets, it's almost helpful to be controversial or take a strong stand for something, because even if that means a third of people are going to hate you, you'll probably have another 1/3 of people that love you, and maybe 1/3 of people that are somewhere in the middle that you can win over. And if you can win over 2/3 of a marketplace, you're in good shape. Okay, so don't try to get everyone, just try to get the raving fans. So I go into more details about this stuff, the ideal author, publisher, candidate. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're writing the book yourself or you're outsourcing it, okay? I do make some distinctions in here between which things are easier to write yourself and which things are easier to outsource, but just take all these qualities, right? If you're outsourcing, hire the person that can write something in a way that's believable, or understand that your job is to then gather the testimonials that makes it believable, whatever it is. Sample book description structure. The word sample is important because you don't have to follow this structure. It'll make it easy, like training wheels, but eventually you can let go of it all, do your own thing, you get the gist of it. But there is a basic structure that's important to follow, and that's get their attention, okay, and then solve a problem for them. There's a few other formulas. There's attention, the interest, desire, and there's these different things like problem, agitation, solution, some various copywriting things that I'll probably have incorporated into this guide, into this training as a separate little bonus type of tip. But realize that just gives you a starting point. You don't have to be stuck in a very particular structure, okay? Just makes it easier if this is your first time doing this sort of stuff. Then I give you some headlines to open up your book description, and especially something that challenges the belief. So the problem with paleo, the problem with goals. If you, discover the truth about internet marketing you haven't been told. Discover the truth about whatever topic it is you're talking about you haven't been told is sort of a copy and paste idea. But remember, you can change the wording around, get the gist of this, and then you can switch it up a bit. And you'll see how I actually do that in some of my examples. So you would start with a headline, you would talk a little bit about it, and then you might transition into a different perspective of, so here's what the problem is, but now here's a solution to it. Here's the new way. Here's a better way. Here's an unconventional solution for it, okay? And then I also offer an alternative in this section for something that has more believability. So I might say what new research reveals about this. So maybe the problem was it was based on outdated research, but new research reveals there's a better way. The unusual discovery I made about a topic. So this could be first person, okay? You could realize with any of this stuff, instead of I made, it could be researchers made, it could be the unusual discovery a doctor made about whatever. It doesn't have to be first person, okay? So you can switch from first to second to third person with any of these things. And then I give you some bullet point templates. So why buying into the common belief hype is what's keeping you in an undesired state. So that might not make that much sense just reading that, but when you see the example, it'll come together. Why buying into the paleo diet hype is what's keeping you from achieving ideal health. The scientific way to desired result. 6 scientifically proven ways to keep yourself motivated to exercise. Okay, so that's just some ideas, some done-for-you templates that you can use. Then I give you questions for closing the sale. These are optional, but they can be helpful. So would you rather keep following unproven strategies, or do you want the real key to whatever, becoming a #1 best-selling Kindle author? Whatever your niche is, obviously you're smart enough to realize you put in whatever this book is talking about that you're going to have. And then another example, are you ready to learn the new way to achieve blank? So you don't have to use all of these in the same description. Okay, you might pick one of these headlines. Then you might pick a headline from one of the other formulas for your second headline. You might pick one of these bullet points here. And then at the end, I have other bullet points that you can use. And you'll mix and match these different things. I'm going to get into that in a few moments. That it's not just using only these things. These are some bullet points that are somewhat contrarian. Okay, because it's saying something that you're used to doing or thinking. You know, you get this result, but it's not by doing the thing that you thought you needed to do. And then the sample description. So for all but one of these descriptions, I completely made up a book title, subtitle, description, all the claims in it. So don't actually think these are real books, okay? Don't actually think the claims are real, because I just made it up. But it's going to illustrate how I can take a basic blueprint or a basic formula and come up with a book idea, come up with a book description and whatnot. So in this case, I came up with something called the motivation deception. The surprising truth about why you can't get motivated in the 3 keys to unleashing your inner drive. Is it the best book title in the world? Probably not. But for something I just made up, it'll get the job done to illustrate a point. But I think the motivation deception, which I use because the motivation myth is already a book, I think it's interesting. So the whole positioning that I could talk about here is that, you know, the common idea of getting motivated is actually a bad thing, or it's not helping you. You don't want to get motivated, you want to do something else. So I took one of these headlines up here, discover the truth about blank you haven't been told. So discover the truth about motivation you haven't been told. And then you can see how I would go into telling a story. And then what new research reveals about motivation. Okay? And then researching the world's most successful and productive people. They use 3 forces to create motivation as a side effect. So I'm making all this stuff up, but you'll see a lot of my principles for persuasive writing that you're being taught in this training used here. Okay? And then you're going to discover, then I go into some bullet points. Why trying to get motivated is a waste of time, what you should do instead. 7 scientifically proven ways to keep yourself moving towards your goals and actually enjoying the process. How 3 magic words leads to more productivity effortlessly. So I follow some of the bullet points you see up here, but then I follow some of the other bullet points I give you later in this guide. And then I give you some notes on my thoughts with this description and why I chose to do some of the things that I did. So now that you understand the basic overview, I can go a little quicker through some of these other formulas because they're going to be self-explanatory now that you have the overview once you read it. So Formula 2, insights from an authority. Secrets of blank for blank, or what blank can teach you about blank. Once again, you're not going to understand that until you see the examples. So secrets of hypnotists for creating captivating stories readers can't put down. I could use the word that in there. But a simple copywriting tip, try to avoid that, the word that, anytime you don't need it. So secrets, creating captivating stories that readers can't put down, take it out. Creating captivating stories readers can't put down. Strategies of the world's funniest comedians for making anyone fall in love with you. This is intriguing because it's like you're getting a desired benefit, but it's where that information is coming from. It's the source. In this case, it's hypnotists. In this case, it's the world's funniest comedians. Is more intriguing, and you believe it because I believe the world's funniest comedians might have some tips for being funnier and being more likable and whatever, okay? I believe a hypnotist might know something about how to use words to captivate people and intrigue them. What a CIA agent can teach you about how to spot a liar. I believe a CIA agent, if I studied what they did, then they could probably show me how to spot a liar, right? And it's intriguing. Hollywood storytelling secrets for internet marketers based on a headline I saw. So you can see now more real life examples. You see where I got how to spot deception the CIA way. I just used kind of a variation on that up here. Secrets of the world's longest living people, team secrets of Navy SEALs, so on and so forth. Then I come up with more examples for authors. So if any of these would interest you as an author, once again, it could be a book title, it could be a bullet point that you see, it could be a headline, it could be a chapter title. I could have a chapter title in one of my books called How to Market Your Book the Tim Ferriss Way. And because it's Tim Ferriss who's an authority on, selling books in some respects, then it's interesting. Book marketing tactics from the 10 biggest book launches of all time, okay? So I also give you another little bonus tip. Crazy sports fans can teach you about creating habits that stick. That's actually a bullet point I used. And a lot of this stuff, that idea came from the book, Yes, 50 Scientifically Proven Ways to Be Persuasive. And you see I reference that down here. So this is intriguing because we all like to learn from authorities, or we just like to learn from interesting groups. So are Navy SEALs the best at building teams? I don't know, but it's more entertaining for me to read about what Navy SEALs do for team building than what a Fortune 500 company does. So it's coming from an interesting source, which makes it entertaining as well as educational. And so there's a lot of variations on this that you'll read about. And they're highly believable now, okay? So whereas a contrarian book has less believability but some intrigue, these are very believable because we trust the source, okay, if you use a good source. The challenge is, though, find a balance between unusual and reliable. I mean, if I just said, Navy SEALs fitness secrets or whatever, it's actually not as interesting because you can find information on what Navy SEALs do to train, and it also might kind of create a disconnect with the audience who goes, well, there's no way I can do what a Navy SEAL does to get in shape. I'm not that hardcore, okay? So it actually works when the two topics are related but not so directly connected, okay? So a Hollywood storyteller for creating an author bio that moves your readers or something like that. So do I believe a Hollywood storyteller can help me write a better, backstory for my author bio? Absolutely. Okay, but it wouldn't be the first thing that I think about, so it's a little intriguing. I wouldn't think to go to a Hollywood screenwriter, let's say, to learn that information. So then you also need to research or connect with these authorities. It's a very easy book to outsource. You could interview 10 experts on a topic and create one of these types of books. Or you can read, 10 different books or a handful of different books from different experts and compile their wisdom. And you'll see some examples of this. And then, so the ideal candidate, you can outsource it, you can research it yourself. It's an easier book to create. And then once again, I go through a sample structure, some headlines, the, secrets of the blank for blank strategy there. Want to discover how, like a thing. So want to captivate readers like a Hollywood storyteller, for instance. So you're making a comparison between two different worlds. And then you'll see an example of my book, The Irresistible Author, Secrets of Cult Leaders, Politicians, and Other Magnetic Characters for Ethically Creating a Massive Following of Loyal Readers. So I thought I'd take something a little bit controversial by talking about cult leaders. But then if I do that, I want to make sure to handle the objection that this is taking what they do but using it ethically, using it honestly. And you can see my example there. So that was just a fun one for me to write, to think if I could do something a little controversial, but leveraging like cult leaders, politicians, but then even like rock stars and anyone that has like a big following of people. What do they do to create that following, to create these loyal followers? And what if as an author you could use those same tactics ethically to create a following of readers? It's just an interesting thing. And I could actually probably write a book on this topic. I could more than likely actually create this book if I wanted to. So formula number 3, mistakes keeping you from success. A classic thing. It can be played out a little bit. It's not, but it's still intriguing given that we never want to make mistakes. So if you see my book, Why Authors Fail, 17 mistakes self-published authors make to sabotage their success. 5 mistakes every investor makes. It doesn't have to use the word mistakes, by the way. You'll realize a lot of these things don't follow the template exactly as it is, and that's great because you should use your own words. You get the gist behind it and you do your own thing. Unseen forces that stand in the way of true inspiration. Okay? That's a very clever way of saying some things that are going to stop you from success. In this case, unseen forces that stand in the way of true inspiration. 15 things, this was an article that went very viral. 15 things you should give up to be happy. It's not 15 things you should do to be happy, which it could have just as easily been called that, but you can take anything. This is powerful because you can take any concept and flip it on its negative. So if I say 15 things to start doing to be happy, I can say, well, if you need to start doing these things, then is there something that you should stop doing, or what's the opposite of this? And so it's 15 things you should give up to be happy. Okay, stop doing dumb things with money is kind of another example. So it's good because we all want to avoid mistakes. The unique selling proposition is it's taking sort of the negative angle. It works for any type of book that's a how-to book for the most part. I can't think of too many exceptions if you get creative with this. Because anything that you should do, you can also say you shouldn't do the opposite. Yeah, I guess is the way I say it. So if that makes sense. And I kind of give some examples down here. I'll kind of skip ahead. If I say you need to use resistance training, intense resistance training, I say, well, the mistake is avoiding heavy weights or avoiding resistance training, or just doing cardio and not doing resistance training. If I say you need to leverage authorities, that's how you become successful in business. But I could say the mistake you're making is that you're not leveraging authorities. That's why you're struggling, because you're not leveraging authorities. If I say what you need to do to get motivated, the essential thing is get accountability. Or I could say the mistake that's keeping you from being motivated is that you're going at it alone. You lack accountability. Right? Everything can be kind of like flipped to the opposite side of the coin. Now, the challenges with this is that you want to find the balance between positive and negative. Just telling people they're screwing up and leaving it at that isn't very fun. You want to say, hey, you're screwing up. Here's what you do instead. Okay? And then you also want to go a little bit farther than most people might do. The average person might just say, here's the mistakes and here's what you do. It will be even more effective if you understand where those mistakes came from and help show them a way around it. So I give an example. If I just say, yeah, stop using crappy book covers and get a better designer, okay? I can just say that, but that's kind of being lazy. What I say instead is, okay, I know some people get a crappy book cover because they don't understand the importance of a book cover. So if I can demonstrate and explain how many more sales it can lead to, if I can give case studies of books that changed their book cover and how much it increased their sales, and I'm actually enlightening people to the impact that this has. Or I could say, hey, you know what? You might be scared to get a good book cover because you think it's really expensive, you know, or you're tired of using Fiverr, but you think the only other option is going to cost you hundreds of dollars. Look, I got a great guy that'll do it for $30 and he knocks it out of the park every single time. Okay, so I overcome the objections that they have. I understand why they were making those mistakes, and I go in depth to actually teach them a little bit more. So that's a good thing to do as the author, or make sure whoever you outsource covers that. And so once again, we have a sample book description. I don't give as much stuff. The headlines, these are all mistake-driven headlines. So once again, you don't have to use every single one of these. You know, you don't have to do one from here, and then follow with one from here, and then follow with one of these things. You could just pick one of these, and then maybe your second headline comes from one of the other sources, or is a more generic headline. So could a hidden mistake be sabotaging your blank? This is how I start my book, Why Authors Fail. Could a hidden mistake be sabotaging your success as an author? In this case, could it be sabotaging your dog training efforts? What you must avoid if you want men to fall in love with you. Like, ooh, I hope I don't make that mistake. I hope I'm not doing that. You know, in my case, if I want women to fall in love with me, I better not be making that mistake. It's intriguing. Headline options to demonstrate before and after. So you'll see what all of this stuff is. At this point, you should get it. And then sample description is actually a real description I use in the book, Why Authors Fail, which I've recently updated to include this section. I didn't have this section before. So, could a hidden mistake be sabotaging your success as an author? It grabs their attention. Well, I hope not, but maybe it's possible. And then I give my backstory for some believability, and then I say what all authors must know, what they'll discover. Then I give some bullet points here. Now, just a quick thing. Notice one of these bullet points. Why struggling authors' creativity can be what leads to their failure. This was actually a controversial point in one of the reviews actually on this book. And that's fine because it grabs people's attention. So I'm saying we're taught creativity is a good thing, and I'm teaching you creativity is a good thing, right? But I'm saying their creativity can be what leads to failure. So see how that's contrarian? See how that's like, whoa, wait, what are you talking about, Derek? And now the answer to that is you balance, it's not all creativity. It's part creativity. It's part modeling what works. That's why I give my formula for innovation. It's like a yin-yang type of thing where you balance different things. So I use a contrarian point in a book that might be called a mistakes book. You're starting to see how you can combine these different elements. And then the 4 is novel mechanism. If you don't know what a mechanism is, you need to see the training on that. It's the thing that gets you the results. It's the secret sauce. The secret's in the blank. It's also anything that talks about tips, blueprint, strategies, way, the, what, a system for blank. All that stuff's going to be a mechanism. It's a noun. Okay, so what's a novel mechanism? And by novel, I don't mean novel like a book. I mean novel as in it's something you've never heard before, or it's something brand new. It's something unique. So that would be something like 5 love languages. Okay, so Gary Chapman came up with the term the 5 love languages. Now, he didn't invent the human psychology behind it. I mean, I guess we've always maybe had these things that we respond to, and some people might argue that they don't exist or it's just whatever. The point is, though, he gave a unique name to something that existed. He called it the 5 love languages, which grabs your attention because you go, well, what's a love language? Okay? At least when it was brand new, people would go, what's a love language? Still a best-selling book, on the top of the charts. And it's been out for a while. So it's not just how to have good relationships, how to have a better relationship. That's what a amateur, wannabe, self-published author would try to do, is say how to have a good relationship. But what he did is he said, you use love languages, and that's what gets you the secret to a love that lasts. Habit Stacking by Steve Scott. Have you heard of habit stacking before he came out with that book? Probably not. Okay, it's not that he invented the concept of combining small tasks into a single routine, but he invented the phrase to go with it. Mini habits is another made-up phrase. My friend Tony Horton, who is the trainer in P90X, on the infomercials, they talk about muscle confusion. And this is the secret of a lot of infomercials. They all have some sort of unique mechanism where they say, and the secret's in the blank, muscle confusion. That's what makes it work. Is it the first program in the world to change the stimulus your muscles go through, over the 90 days? No, of course not. But it probably is the first time you've heard the phrase muscle confusion because they came up with a novel mechanism. And you can invent your own novel mechanism with anything, okay? Now, this does require, obviously, some more creativity than some of the other things, but once you understand it and what you're doing, now you can get really clever and have a huge competitive advantage. Neuromarketing, habit stacking, mini habits, love languages, Strength Finders 2.0, 2KH formula. So that's Tim Castleman. That's kind of an easy way when you just use some numbers and letters, and right, to come up with. Even P90X is kind of like the novel mechanism that they use, and you see this used all the time. The Fat Smash diet, almost all diets that have a clever name or a unique name are an example of a novel mechanism. Okay, now those work, and same thing with the Food Babe Way. Those work mostly because it's celebrities behind them. So it's not that you can't come up with your own mechanism in the diet and health arena. It definitely works. Just realize that if you called your book The Food Babe Way, it might not do as well because you're not the food babe who has this huge following and has built that branding up, right? So hopefully that's obvious. So I came up, the book save system, the secret to creating a never-ending stream of book sales. Or here's something I actually think I could create: author archetypes. Discovering your unique strengths as an author to deliver what no one else can. Okay, could I come up with and invent author archetypes, which is based around an actual idea I have of how there's different types of angles we can take as an author that resonate with different people. So I could talk about finding your unique archetype or personality type as an author. So that's a unique novel mechanism. You've never heard that before, at least not that I know of, because I just made it up when writing this. So why is this irresistible? You'll see in here, basically, it's something you've never heard before, so it grabs a person's attention by being new. You do want to make sure it's not so vague that a person has no idea, like the 2KH formula, you wouldn't know what that is, but it's clearly spelled out in the subtitle that it's something that's going to help you write words faster. So you want to explain the mechanism if it's not obvious. Something like habit stacking is a little vague, but you know it has something to do with habits, and then you see more details about it there. Okay, so the unique selling proposition, never heard it before. It's very curiosity driven. It adds believability to it because you think, well, if it's this special system, then that's how it gets the results. The challenges to conquer. You have to balance curiosity with confusion, and it's a fine line. Does it make a person go, oh, that's interesting, or I have no idea what that means. I'm confused. I don't even want to bother to look into it. Okay, this is where testing and trying different things out can come in handy. What I say is you're just pulling this out of your ass objection. Don't go crazy with the made up mechanisms, okay? You know, you can have a couple, but you go too crazy and it starts to come across as gimmicky. Okay, and then creativity. You need creativity. It's not a copy, but you got to come up with the words and the idea and the phrasing behind it. So once again, if you don't know how to do it yourself, talk to a really clever friend that's good at making up stuff, and they can help you. Or run surveys and get feedback and put ideas out there. This is just a quick teaching point. I don't come up with ideas and everything's perfect and polished. I ask for feedback. I get ideas. Other people have helped me come up with my book titles, and I've listened to other things and modeled other things. That's how I got to where I'm at. That's why I like creating these trainings, because I'm giving you stuff to work with that spurs your own ideas from what I'm laying out. So then I go through all the other stuff that I talked about before. You see this A plus B mechanism. That's a cool one. So you'll see me get into this idea of a skeptimonial, another word that I made up. A skeptic plus a positive testimonial equals a skeptimonial. So let's just go ahead and jump down to that. My book, made up book, Skeptimonials, your secret to winning over customers and competing in a crowded marketplace. So our skeptimonials, your solution to skyrocketing your conversions. And I lay this out, and you should have known from the other training that you would have gone through before this one that testimonials from a skeptic are very powerful and persuasive, if not the most powerful types of testimonials. So this could actually be a real book, and I wrote it as if it could be a real book. Now, obviously, I'm making all this stuff up, so don't believe I actually have 17 examples of testimonials that increased our conversion by at least 37%. Don't actually believe that. It's just to illustrate an example of following these templates. And this idea that you can make up a word. You make it up. Your eye sees that, and you go, skeptimonials, what is that? But then I see it's your secret to winning over customers and competing in a crowded marketplace. Well, I want to learn more. That's got my attention. Okay, because it's something I might be missing. It's something that I've never heard of before. Maybe this was the missing link all along. I never even heard of this thing called the skeptimonial. And then finally, the fifth formula, the empathetic book. So this is the one that actually requires a little bit of explanation. I call it empathetic because you're connecting with them. It's almost like you're inside their heads when it comes to the title. But you could have an empathetic book title. And then you can have what I call an empathetic description, which is where you're just telling a first-person story and really connecting with them, and getting them to empathize with you. Okay, so it kind of flips around. So this is one of those things that you might decide, do I want an empathetic book title, an empathetic description, and or a combination of both to some degree. So to make sense out of that, let's jump right into the examples. Please stop laughing at me. Why does he do that? Why isn't my brain working? What should I do with my life? I'm too young for this. You mean I'm not lazy, stupid, or crazy? Running sucks. Are you the one for me? These are all things that are going through your reader's head. So if I'm scrolling through books and I see something like, why isn't my brain working? And I've been saying that to myself. I don't know if that's the most catchy thing. I don't know if that's something I would ever say to myself. But if someone's been saying that to themselves, they're like, oh my God, this book has the answer. Or why does he do that? Right? Imagine you're, a woman that's with an angry and controlling man, and you keep asking her, why does he do that? What's going on? I don't get it. If that's what you keep saying to yourself, and then all of a sudden you see this book title, why does he do that? Inside the Minds of Anger and Control. It's like, this book was made for me. This author gets it. They know what I'm going through, and it creates that instant connection. So let's use some examples for self-publishers. Where the hell are my readers? Your guide to finding your following and building your author platform. So if you've ever asked yourself that, or you thought that, or you see that book and you're like, oh yeah, I need to know that. Why aren't my books selling? If that's a question you've ever asked, then this book might grab your attention. Book marketing sucks. If you're angry, if you're like, oh, I hate it. Well, what if there's a hands-free way to do it to get your book in front of millions where you don't have to market the book yourself? Well, that might be intriguing, right? So that's the power of these. And it's kind of like my back pocket secret weapon. When I just don't know how to make a book title unique or what the unique selling point is, if I can come up with some clever phrase that they would use, I know it's going to at least grab attention. Okay, doesn't mean it's a guaranteed sale. I still have to have a good description and maybe some reviews or testimonials and a good book, obviously. But it will definitely do a good job. These titles, if you find the right phrase and you understand your target reader well enough to like say exactly what they're thinking, it can be very powerful. The one kind of downside is there is a limit to it. So if you say, what's my purpose in life? It's a little too cliche. Okay, it's a little too obvious. It's a little bit too much of something that a million other people might write the same type of book. Where everyone, now all of a sudden, people get off this training and you get 50 people that all go write the book, What's My Purpose in Life or something, or What's My Life's Purpose, and it just gets diluted. So you still want to use a little bit of creativity, but at the same time, balance it with a thing that people would actually probably be saying to themselves. And now if we're talking about descriptions though, so a description is where in the book description you're mostly telling a story. So before I even jump into that, let me give you an example of a good one, which is Stephen Geist's Mini Habits. So lasting change for early quitters, burnout, unmotivated. So he's getting the attention of the target reader, but you'll notice this, all I statements. Now he does have you can succeed without the guilt, intimidation. So there he goes to a you statement, and then he talks about this. But a lot of this part up front is when I started exercising consistently over 10 years ago. This is what happened when I decided to start exercising. I tried getting motivated at work sometimes. I tried setting big audacious goals. I almost always failed them. Like most people who try to change and fail, I assumed that I was the problem. What he's doing is he's creating a connection with the reader. He's telling his story and people go, oh, I can totally relate to that. Oh, I know how that feels. And so it's all about this connection. Then one afternoon, so it's the before and then it's the after. Here's what I did before, but then I accidentally started my first mini habit. Then I discovered this unique thing called a mini habit. And then the success, I became massively successful after that. Okay, that's just the summary of it. So there's something that I need to point out when it comes to storytelling, which I'm not an expert storyteller, but you want to engage emotions. It's not just stating some facts of what happened. If you can use even like this stupid idea wasn't supposed to work. Okay, I was shocked. That's emotional language. It's not full of fluffy emotional language, but it's got audacious goals, and I almost always failed them. Okay, it just creates this emotional engagement that connects with the reader. Okay, so the challenge is for titles, there's only so many phrases. For descriptions, you want to create a compelling story, and it also needs to be relatable. So if I talk about my story of, building muscle as a college guy and bench pressing 350 pounds, and I'm trying to sell a fitness book to a middle-aged woman who is a mother of 7 and is dealing with her family, like it's too different, right? You want to have some sort of relatability with the reader and connect with them on that level. So the better you can do these things, though, the better your selling point is. So I go over all these things, and then instead of giving you headline and bullet point templates, I talk about creating just a good before and after with a simple but powerful technique. And once I learned this technique, or before I learned it, a lot of times I felt like I was talking at people with advice. Okay, it's like, here's what you need to do. Blam. And it'd go in one ear and out the other. But once I learned to actually phrase things using this formula, then all of a sudden the advice and the things I had to offer would have impact. People would actually take it and apply it and use it in their life, and it went in kind of under the radar. It didn't feel like I was forcing advice on people or telling them what to do. They naturally wanted it. And so imagine this with your books. Instead of saying, you need to buy this book because it's so great, blah, 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 and people get defensive about it, you say, use this. Before I learn this one thing, after I learn this one thing, and that one thing is. Okay? And it doesn't have to be one thing. It could be a strategy. It could be a blueprint. But that's what Stephen Geist does, is he's saying, before I was trying this stuff and I was failing, then I discovered like the secret. And once I used this secret, I was able to stick with my exercise program for, ever since then. And that secret is in the mini habit. Okay. And then now what happens is people goes, oh, wow, what? Ooh, I need to learn about this. What is it? That worked for you? Well, if it worked for you, maybe it could work for me. As opposed to a different approach, which is you need mini habits. Mini habits are going to change your life. Go start doing this today, where people go, don't tell me how to live my life, right? So it's a way to kind of go in under the radar. That's the power of telling a first-person story with a good like before and after. So I give some examples. And you might go, well, Derek, what if I don't have my own success story? Or what if I'm outsourcing this? Doesn't matter. Same concept if you're using a third-party testimonial. Same concept if you talk about, researchers took, some people and they found that here's the results that they were getting, but they switched one thing that these people were doing, or they gave them a 3-step process to follow, or they added this one thing into their diet, or they started changing this one thing, and all of a sudden the results went, exploded and went crazy, right? So you could talk about what a researcher's found. You could talk about a third party success story, okay? The point is you're using a story to sell the information as opposed to just telling them what they're going to get. And sample description, I made this up, probably not the best thing in the world, but you get the idea. So why are people so stupid? Your survival guide to for living in a world full of idiots. So I thought about, if I were to write a self-help book for someone who doesn't want to read self-help, who thinks everyone else is the problem and they don't, it's not me, it's everyone else. So I thought, how would I reach that person? Well, I'd reach them by connecting with them where they're at. Why are people so stupid? Right? And if a person thinks that and they've been asking themselves, they'd probably be curious to check this out in your survival guide for living in a world full of idiots. Now I go through this, I make up a story about dealing with stupid people and then meeting some wise mentor that gave me the answers and all this sort of stuff. It's not a true story. Completely made all this stuff up, and I don't actually feel this way about a lot of this stuff. But you can see how this would appeal as you read through this yourself to a person who might be skeptical about self-help and would actually get them on board. And here's the thing, just as a side teaching note, in this book, what I could do, I could actually write this book and teach personal development concepts and say, hey, look, you can't help it that the rest of the world, is full of idiots. But what makes more sense, trying to change everyone else in the world or working on the one person that you can control, yourself, and learning how to be more at peace with things and working on yourself and how to interact with people better, whatever it is, right? All the basic self-help, personal development type of information. But I don't start with that. What do I start with? What's the first thing that's going to grab their attention? Something that they're probably already thinking. Why are people so stupid? And I'm like, look, this book's going to help you deal with all the stupid people in the world. And then later on, I kind of ease them into this idea of working on themselves. Okay, so that's what the 5 formulas, and now I talk about putting it all together, and I give an example from Wirestuck. I'll just go ahead and go to the Amazon page. So you could follow one of those formulas and make it the basic positioning and premise of your book, or not. You don't have to. You could have a basic how-to book, and not use any of those formulas in your title or subtitle. But you can still use elements of those formulas once again in a headline, in a chapter title, in all sorts of places. So let's go here. Are you pissed off life didn't come with an instruction manual? That's just kind of an attention-grabbing question. But here I use a lot of contrarian bullet points. Why being stuck may be exactly what you need to make your next breakthrough. How could being stuck be a good thing? That's what your brain does. It's contrarian. It's contrary to popular opinion. How being selfish can be the best thing for you in the rest of the world. That's contrarian. Now, I don't actually literally say you need to only be selfish, but I talk about the healthy boundaries and, taking care of yourself in addition to other people. Why the truth gets you stuck more often than lies. What do you mean by that? How is that possible? Why looking to find your life's purpose is almost always going to backfire on you. See how very different that is than a lot of other self-help books that are all about finding your life's purpose. And I'm going to say, hey, look, trying to find it might be the thing, it might totally backfire on you. Here's a really good example. Why much of the great advice you've heard, especially from self-help and personal development gurus, may be the very thing that's keeping you stuck. I want you to get the idea here that if a person's read a lot of self-help books, then all of a sudden someone's like, yeah, I've read a lot of these self-help books that are all kind of the same. I'm like, oh yeah, great. You know what? Actually, that might be your problem. Maybe you've read all these books and that's exactly why you're stuck. Whoa, wait, what do you mean? See how contrarian that is? See how counter to what they would naturally think that would be, or what popular opinion is? How great advice could actually be keeping you stuck? What do I mean by that? Well, you got to find the book to find out, right? I'll tell you right now, it's basically taking partial truths in isolation from other truths. So, and that's, just a few of them, but not all of these are contrarian, okay? That's like, a small handful, almost half of them. But some of them are how to get whatever you want, even if you're stressed out, busy, or have a million excuses. That's just kind of a generic benefit-driven bullet point. The secret to getting answers when you're lost, confused, and have no idea what to do or where to even begin. Once again, just a basic kind of benefit. Well, let's see what I did in some of the chapter titles, which I actually don't even remember what they all are. So, the 3 big keys to getting yourself unstuck. I call these the 3 keys to freedom. That's kind of a mechanism. 3 keys to freedom is a mechanism. It's 3 keys, right? Let's see. What's the real problem? So maybe slightly contrarian because I'm saying, there's something else that might be the problem that you don't think it is. And then this is basic like how to type of stuff. Oh, here's a good one. How the truth can sometimes keep you stuck. So once again, that's contrarian to what you would. That's contrary to what you would normally think. Why good intentions are not enough. Another kind of maybe slightly contrarian thing if you think it's all about good intentions. So you get the idea. So I combine different things. So here's another example of a good book description that utilizes the secrets of blanks, presentation secrets to the world's best speakers. So this is leveraging the authority of, what would it be? Where is it at? The best TED Talks. So based on extensive analysis of the best TED Talks. So you believe this is going to help you deliver a better presentation because you're learning what the best TED Talks do. Okay? So that's just a real world example. And there's plenty more examples in the guide that go over this. And then you see craft a repeatable, utilize the ABC-C speech structure for powerful presentations. Do you know what that is? That's a novel mechanism used in a bullet point. The ABC-C speech structure. I don't know what that is, but apparently it's going to help me make powerful presentations. Maybe my presentations aren't powerful because I don't know what this thing is. I don't have that speech structure. I didn't learn about it. I need this book to find out. So you see a novel mechanism is used in a bullet point. And then you get some other, basic different bullet points. 5 C's of storytelling would be another example of a mechanism. Sir Ken Robinson's and Dan Pink's techniques for adding humor to a speech. So this is what blank can teach you about blank. What Dan Pink can teach you about adding humor to a speech. It's just a different way of phrasing that, and it's used in a bullet point, and it makes it intriguing. Right? So you see how this is, it'll mix different elements. So your book, like Why You're Stuck might kind of be considered the mistakes formula in a sense, a variation on it. These are some contrarian points. The 3 keys to freedom, the 6 things that drive all your behavior. That's not a novel mechanism, but it is kind of a mechanism. So you see that it combines a lot of different elements for any book. It's not just following one formula, and it might just be loosely based around one of these 5 formulas, and it might be using, once again, other formulas that I haven't listed in this book. Okay, so that's why I kind of give you noteworthy nonfiction authors to study. You can see what they're doing. That's just a small handful. You can see some more bonus templates. You see some more bonus bullet point templates that you can use with any of these books, and you can mix and match all of the bullet points that you get throughout this book for your book. I also kind of compare it to like Legos. Like you might get a Lego. I played with Legos as a kid. You might get a set of Legos and instructions on how to build a spaceship, and you can do that. But then you can take them apart and build something completely brand new with the same pieces. So you can take these pieces apart and mix and match it, and as long as it makes sense, it'll work. Or another example, as a musician, you can take different chords and different notes. There's only 12 notes, but you can mix and match them in an infinite number of ways. Now, if you're an absolute beginner, that's going to be difficult, which is why I give you so much structure to work within. But as you become more experienced, you get more freedom with this. And it takes an outside perspective, whether that's hiring me to look over your stuff, or hiring someone else, or even just running it, sending it to some friends and saying, hey, how does this book description look? How does this title sound? Would this intrigue you? Running surveys, all these things are ways to get outside feedback on stuff. I give you a handful of noteworthy descriptions to study, and some other things. So that is your overview of the guide and of the formulas. And if you have any questions, you can contact me at info@ebookbestsellersecrets.com.